Imsa's 2023 calendar is set to be released this week, and it got me thinking, what does the perfect Imsa calendar look like? Does it include the Rolex 24? Who am I kidding? Of course it does. But I certainly do think there are some rounds that could be cut, as well as some tracks that Imsa currently doesn't go to that would make for a great race. So it's time for me to become Imsa President John Stoonin and present to you my perfect Imsa calendar. First, let's just quickly review what the 2023 schedule is. Of course, we start off the season with the iconic Rolex 24 and back that up with another very iconic race, the Sebring 12 Hours. From there, we go on a mini West Coast swing with the Grand Prix of Long Beach, as well as WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. The WeatherTech Championship didn't head to Detroit this year, but the Michelin Pilot Challenge did, and then those rounds were followed up by some iconic middle of the summer rounds, the 6 Hours of the Glen, and then the only trip right now north of the border to CTMP. Then you have Lime Rock Park and an absolutely iconic race at Road America, followed by the final GT only round of the season at VIR, a new race for this season at Indianapolis, and then the season finale, Patilla Mall at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Now, there are lots of great tracks that are on this calendar, but I do think there's still some room for improvement. And before we jump into my perfect calendar, there's a couple of things that I want to preface this with. First of all, no, I do not want to go to COTA or Miami. Those tracks can stay on the F1 calendar, and no, not Las Vegas either. Also, I love Mid-Ohio, but just didn't make the cut for me. And finally, just because I left a current Imsa track off my calendar that Imsa has been going to for a number of years, it does not mean that I hate the track by any stretch of the imagination. All right, good. That out of the way, let's begin. So for my perfect Imsa calendar, it ended up being a 14 race calendar. It features 6 Michelin Endurance Cup rounds, so 2 more than what we currently have, and it features 8 sprint races. Now, of those sprint races, there are 3 GT only rounds, as well as 2 prototype only rounds. A prototype only round is something new, and the more that I think about it, the more that I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that gets introduced to the Imsa calendar as early as next year, but that is just kind of what I'm personally hoping for, especially considering that the grid breakdown next year is expected to be about 50-50 prototypes to GTs. Alright, to absolutely no one's surprise, the perfect first opening race is the Rolex 24. Keep it in January or at the very latest the beginning of February, and you don't really have to mess around with that at all. Same thing goes for the second event of the season at Sebring. Keep the 12 Hours of Sebring the second race that they're going to. And don't mess around with the date there at all either. February, perfectly fine for that. I really do like the Long Beach sprint race being the third round of the season as well. I know it's a boring start to this schedule, but just keep these races the same. There's no need to mess with them. They provided some great action and honestly some amazing variety to start the season as well. Plus, I really like having some IndyCar crossover weekends as well. Round 4 is where we see our first real change here. And while it's still Laguna Seca in April, this time Laguna Seca is a prototype only round. As I mentioned just a second ago, the expected field split for next season is going to be close to 50-50 prototypes and GTs. I don't have a problem with the GTs going here, but I think it would get pretty chaotic, maybe a little bit too chaotic, if we had like 40 or 45 cars running around Laguna Seca. So for that reason, I'm leaning towards keeping that just a prototype only round and give them a real opportunity to shine without all the burdens of the GT traffic. Now the next couple of rounds are going to get juicy. But before I get to that, did you know that Off in the S's has a Patreon? If you want to support the show and help me get to some more races to cover them in person, then consider checking it out. In return for your support, you'll have some regular monthly channel updates, as well as some behind the scenes of the channel. And there may or may not be some sneak peeks into some other stuff that I'm working on. The best part is you can start off with a free trial. Just head to patreon.com/offinthes's or check out the link in the show notes. My round 5 is a brand new track that I guarantee you most of you probably haven't heard of. Located just outside Seattle, Washington is Ridge Motorsport Park. And man, oh man, I was looking at some onboards of this track. It is a beautiful track, absolutely stunning scenery around it, crazy elevation changes. It looks like it would be just a great track to have a race on. Now, I'll definitely acknowledge, I think there's some work safety-wise to do for this track. There's definitely some areas of the track that don't have guardrails around them, so obviously there would be things like that that would need to be done to in order to facilitate an Imsa race. But I think that this would make a perfect spot for a GT only round. Plus, I think it would be a great way to cap off sort of Imsa's West Coast swing after Long Beach, Laguna Seca, and then Ridge Motorsports Park. Round 6 is going to go to another track that's not currently on the Imsa calendar, and that's Barber Motorsport Park in Birmingham, Alabama. The track has hosted all forms of motorsports and in recent memory has played host to IndyCar. I think this would be another great round to have all 4 classes of the WeatherTech Championship. We're approaching the halfway mark of my season, and the race before the halfway mark I think should be in Detroit. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is less so about the track itself because it's a really tight and narrow street course. I really think there is a place for street courses in Imsa, and that's one of the reasons why I'd like to see Detroit remain on the calendar. But the real reason that I want this on the calendar is that unique pit road. We saw it in this year's Michelin Pilot Challenge race. There's actually 2 sides to the pit road and the field was split up onto either side. I think it's always great to see really unique tracks like that. And I think that the street race at Detroit would make for a solid GT only round. As we round the halfway mark and we're getting into sort of late June at this point, you have the 6 Hours of the Glen. Again, I think it's in a great time of the year. It's an iconic track. Everybody loves it. Let's keep that as is. Follow that up with a quick trip north of the border to CTMP in early July. Again, another great round. I'm going to be selfish since this is my personal perfect Imsa schedule, but I definitely want all of the classes to come up, including the LMP2s. But it's the round after that I'm going to throw a wrench into things, and I think that they should stay north of the border, take a quick trip down the 401 to Montreal. Montreal is going to play host to a Michelin Endurance Cup race at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Again, this is all hypothetical on my perfect Imsa calendar. And the round that they'd have there, again, part of the Michelin Endurance Cup, would be 4 hours. So a little bit longer than your standard Imsa race, but still also part of the Michelin Endurance Cup. Kind of going back to what I said earlier about street races and how I really do believe that there's a spot for those on the Imsa calendar. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is kind of a hybrid between a street race and a proper permanent course, and I think it would be great to see Imsa head to Montreal. The one hesitation that I kind of have here is regarding the amount of paddock space that they actually have on the island, as it is a pretty small island. But regardless, I think this would be a great track for Imsa to pay a visit to. And a great city too. Montreal absolutely lights up when Formula One heads to town, and I think that they would embrace a race from Imsa in the same sort of way. Following up that Michelin Endurance Cup race with another one, this time it is going to be Road America. There have been cries for a longer race at Road America for a number of years now, and on my perfect calendar, I'm seeing an 8-hour race at Road America. You can keep this race in early August, the same sort of time frame that it is now, and I think that would make a lot of fans very happy. We're coming into the home stretch now, and we finally get to the last GT only round of the season, and that's going to be at VIR. I don't know what it is about VIR, but I just really love watching races there, and I gotta keep that one on my perfect calendar. Next up, we're heading to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the road course, of course, and in this instance, I'm making this a prototype-only race. And to add another twist in here, I'm going to make it an evening race. I'm not going to make it a Michelin Endurance Cup race like many people expect that it's going to be. I'm just going to keep it a standard 2-hour and 40-minute prototype-only race. Now, why not make Indy a GT round as well? Well, again, I'd like to have an opportunity for the prototypes to be able to shine. I really do think that the prototypes are going to get around Indy a little bit better than the GTs, although I'm very prepared to be wrong on that. But really, I want to give the prototypes an opportunity to shine, and they'll get a chance to shine on a track like Laguna Seca that offers extreme elevation change. And then they're also going to get an opportunity to shine on a track like Indy that's flat, but very technical. And then, in case you didn't see this coming, my final round of the season is gonna stay Patilla Mall. Honestly, there's no better way, I don't think, for you to end off the Imsa calendar than heading to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for a 10-hour race. So what do you think? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you love it? I'm really interested to hear what your guys' takes are on this. Let me know what your perfect Imsa calendar is down in the comments. I'm super excited to see what wild and crazy options you guys are going to come up with. Now, while my perfect schedule may include some tracks that seem more like a dream, I do think that the schedule I came up with does a good job of taking Imsa across to different areas of the country. We add another West Coast race and potentially introduce some more fans to the sport. Because at the end of the day, Imsa and just sports car racing in general is going through a huge boom period right now. There's a lot to keep up on, but I've put this playlist together to keep you up to date on everything you need to know. Once again, a huge shout out to all of the Patreon supporters. If you too want to support the show, then you can head to patreon.com/offinthe-s's. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.